Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Norwich Theatre Royal, and welcome to all those watching this through the live stream. Thank you for being with us today as we launch Creative Intent, Norwich Theatre's new strategy for the next 6 years from 2026 to 2032. It is wonderful to see so many friends, colleagues, partners, artists, supporters, and collaborators gathered here in our Theatre Royal. Some of you have worked with us for many years. Some of you are newer to Norwich Theatre. All of you are part of the story we are here to tell today, and perhaps more importantly, part of the story we want to write next. This morning is not simply a presentation of a strategy document. In my 10 years as chief executive of this glorious organisation, I've rarely been understated before, so there seems little point in starting now. But in seriousness, for all of us here at Norwich Theatre, it is an opportunity to share a direction of travel, to test our ambition in conversation with others, and to bring to life what we mean when we say that Norwich Theatre's purpose is to provide creative experiences, and that our vision is for those creative experiences to have wide-reaching positive impact. Creative Intent is our next chapter. It builds on everything we have learned, everything we have achieved, and crucially, everything our communities, audiences, artists and partners have told us matters most. It asks how a theatre can be artistically ambitious, socially purposeful, financially resilient, civically present, and deeply rooted in place. Creative Intent purposefully challenges Norwich Theatre to play its fullest role for this city, for Norfolk and Suffolk, and in a national and international context, working for artists and audiences, and also for the many people who may not yet see creativity and culture as something that belongs to them. In some ways, this strategy also has its roots in a very particular moment for me. In 2020, when COVID forced us to close our theatres, we had to rethink almost everything about how Norwich Theatre could keep serving people and redefine what it means to be a theatre. During our seasons outdoors in big top tents, through Interlude and the work that followed, we discovered something very important about ourselves, that when the familiar doors are closed, creativity can still find a way, a sobering message for our time. You could say that we found a new kind of intent in a tent. 6 years later, that spirit of resilience, imagination, and purposeful reinvention is part of what has led us here to Creative Intent.
As Stephen said, before we look forward, though, let's pause and remember the journey that's brought Norwich Theatre to this point. Our previous strategy, Creative Experiences, was a period of immense growth, learning, and confidence building as we emerged from the pandemic. It helped us think more clearly about the breadth of our role. Norwich Theatre is not only a place where performances happen, but a cultural organisation with responsibilities to artists, audiences, participants, partners, and the wider community. We have seen Norwich Theatre grow artistically, more ambitious programming, producing, co-creation, and taking work beyond traditional stages. We've developed stronger regional and national partnerships and seen creative learning and engagement deepen. As a result, we become more confident about the impact we can have creatively, socially, and in place. But we live in a challenging time. The world has changed dramatically. Our communities face increasing and volatile pressures. Parts of the cultural sector face real fragility. That said, the achievements of the last strategy have given us a much stronger platform from which to respond. So, today is a moment of gratitude as well as ambition. Gratitude to staff, volunteers, trustees, artists, audiences, participations, and donors who have built the foundation on which Creative Intent now stands.
The strategy we are sharing today has not been written in isolation. It has been shaped through listening to communities, artists, partners, audience staff, freelancers, volunteers, trustees, and civic stakeholders, particularly through our 18-month-long Creative Conversations programme. It has been shaped by evidence and reflection, and it's been shaped by what we know is working, what we know needs to change, and by what people have told us they need from Norwich Theatre in the years ahead. That process has led us to a strategy built around 3 strategic priorities. The first is bold theatre that speaks loud and clear, theatre that is ambitious, relevant, rooted in place, and meaningful to audiences and communities. The second is social impact that touches lives and communities, because we believe that creativity can build confidence, connection, well-being, voice, and opportunity. And then the third is a creative endeavour that sees growth and change, recognising that artistic and social ambition needs strong foundations. They need people, skills, infrastructure, partnerships, financial resilience, and long-term investment. Together, these priorities describe not only what we want to do over the next 6 years, but what kind of organisation we will become.
At Norwich Theatre, we all believe that the way this strategy is delivered is just as important as the ambition itself. That's why creative intent is underpinned by clear delivery principles. We're committed to being just and fair, sustainable and resilient, listening and responsive in all that we do. These principles turn to our values, and it turns them into a practice and makes us held to account, just as we hold ourselves to account. They ask us to be open about progress, including where more work is needed by us. They ask us to make responsible choices for the long term. They ask us to listen carefully and respond visibly to what we hear. As part of that approach to delivery, I'm delighted to announce the establishment of Intrepid, a new commercial company that will support Norwich Theatre's charitable mission through income generation. Intrepid will provide a range of creative services to the theatre, entertainment, and events industries. It will allow us to use our skills, experience, infrastructure, and ingenuity in new commercial ways while keeping the purpose absolutely clear. All profit made by Intrepid will be powered back into Norwich Theatre and our charitable work. Norwich Theatre receives no regular funding to support our work, so we have to be dynamic and innovative to sustain and grow income. Intrepid will be a primary vehicle for delivery, proud of our commercial capability, but always in service of public benefit and the communities we serve. Creative intent is deliberately long-term, but it will evolve. Annual delivery plans, review points, and impact reporting will ensure that ambition is translated into action and that action leads to meaningful change. By 2032, the measure of success will not simply be what Norwich Theatre has delivered, it will be how it has grown, with purpose, openness, responsibility to the people and the places it serves.
What Nick has just described is what today's event is designed to explore. We'll begin by looking back at the journey of creative experiences. We'll then move into 3 conversations, each focused on one of the strategic priorities within creative intent. Our first panel, Bold Collaboration in Changing Times, will explore how bold theatre is made possible through partnership, place-based work, and shared ambition. Our second panel, New Solutions to New and Old Challenges, will focus on social impact and the role creativity can play in responding to some of the most urgent issues facing communities. And then our third panel, What is Creative Endeavour, will look at the organisational engine that makes artistic and social impact possible. Alongside these conversations, we'll hear from artists and participants whose work reminds us that strategy is only meaningful when it turns into lived experience. So, to begin, we're going to look back at the strategy that brought us here, creative experiences, and the foundations it has created for this next chapter. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Before we go into this panel, I just want to give a short context around it. Now, as Stephen's already mentioned, that creative intent asks us to make bold theatre that speaks loud and that speaks clear. Now, that means ambitious and distinctive work, but work that's done in the right way. That's through partnerships, through cooperation, through good practice. Sorry, my IT's playing up. Of course it is. Through place-based practice. And it's about responsibility to the artists, the audiences, and the communities as well. So that's a key part of it. Now, over the past 4 years, as you've seen, the theatre has grown in confidence as a producing, a presenting, and a convening organisation, but also a powerful collaborative one, particularly with local artists, national partners, regional venues, funders, communities, and international companies. This panel asks what bold collaboration looks like now, particularly in a changing both cultural and economic landscape, and how the theatre can play the fullest role in this ecology around it.
Ben, I'm going to throw the first provocation at you. Bold collaboration in changing times. What does that mean for you in terms of where you sit in the sector?
Thanks, Jez. Hi, everyone. Bold collaboration in changing times. I think there's two sides to that. There's an artistic side to it, and then there's a producing partnership side to it. Artistically, I think it starts by asking, what is theater in the 21st century? What can it be with the world that we live in now, with all of the tools that are at our disposal? And then for collaborating, how can we put together a team, a creative team that is ready to really engage vigorously with those questions, with that quest to kind of make new theater for our century. And with Limbic, one of the things we've been doing is we've been trying to extend that process outward. So it's not just the artistic team inside the room, but also how can we engage broader community voices in answering that question and in helping us to answer those questions. So we'll take a creative idea that we have and run different kinds of engagement workshops around it with broader community participation to try and get these sort of polyphonic voices engaging with our ideas really early on, right at the concept stage. So that allows us to sort of test their resonance and help us determine a kind of forward direction of travel. In terms of producing in partnership, I think it's about looking at how we can create these kind of multi-stranded partnerships that extend, again, beyond the immediate arts sector. So, for example, we at Limbic, working with Norwich Theatre, made a piece called Edgeland that was also in partnership with the Norfolk Wildlife Trust. So we had Limbic, an independent company, partnering with the building and also partnering with the Wildlife Trust in Norfolk to make a big outdoor piece of innovative participatory theater on an urban nature reserve. So just bringing together these different interests and aspects and potential resonances, again, for both the artistic community and audiences as well.
So from Ben, you've heard what it's like to have from a very intimate perspective in terms of links with the theatre, co-creation, partnership. So what I'd like to do is go to yourself, Kiri. Coming from a major sort of institution that works meaningfully with regional and national partners, what has changed, from a producing, a touring, and a partnership landscape standpoint over the last few years?
Yeah, of course. It's really good to be here, by the way, as well. So thank you for the invite. The biggest shift I've observed is the difference now, or the shift or the move between distribution to relationship. So historically, touring could have been sometimes focused on just moving from venue to venue and with those productions, but increasingly as organisations, we're thinking about how we build meaningful long-term relationships with places, communities and regional partners. So I feel like the conversation, and particularly with the work I do regionally, has shifted actually from where we tour to how we build those lasting relationships in those places. And alongside this, we've mentioned it a few times, and it was mentioned in the speeches earlier, that the sector really has changed and is operating in a far more challenging environment. Rising costs, funding pressures, and the changing in audiences' behaviour being, a huge one for everybody, particularly around touring. And that means organisations are really increasingly reliant on the partnerships to achieve their ambitions. So partnership, I feel, is no longer a nice to have, it's a must have. And it's becoming central to how work gets made, how it reaches audiences, but also creates that amazing impact we've been hearing. There's also been a growing recognition, though, of what those local expertise mean and how they matter. So when we are thinking about working regionally, what are we looking for? So some of the questions we've been thinking about as part of our nationwide work is what already exists in that place? Who are the local leaders? What strengths can we build upon? And how do we work with communities rather than simply just deliver to them? So for me, the most important shift of the movement is from measuring success purely through reach towards considering both reach and relevance. So reach still matters, don't get me wrong. We all want, to reach as many people as possible, but this doesn't simply just happen on its own. And I think partnership enables that collaboration to think about those points that I just made.
Claudia, could I bring you in? We've heard about the many kind of challenges and opportunities on a national scale. In terms of our regional theatre ecology specifically, to be healthy, what does it need now?
I feel like you've given me an essay question that I could spend quite a lot of time talking about. So, I work for the Arts Council, so we have lucky enough to have a national perspective, but I also work here in the east of England, so I've got a lot of knowledge around Norfolk and Suffolk as well. And it's certainly true, building on what Kiri just said, there's been such a change in the sector and lots of challenges. I think about financial insecurity. We did some research recently of venues nationally, and 72% were worried about, financial security. Over half of them were worried about programming and about kind of how, that it was kind of risk averse, if you like, so safe program, if you like, and the breadth. We've also measured, the kind of amount of programming that's out there. We've seen a real drop in the amount of performances that are going out regionally, being, nationally and regionally as well. And particularly, that drop is more marked outside of big urban conurbations. So it's a really big challenge here, and thinking about Norwich, but also about the region as a whole and that rural environment. So a healthy theatre ecology, it connects very much to a healthy touring ecology. It connects very much to having, needing anchor organisations like Norwich Theatre who can connect to national partners and also connect to local partners in order to be able to be the bridge between those. We often talk about theatre about having a kind of supply side and a demand side. So on the supply side, to have a really healthy ecology, you need companies locally and nationally who can make work. You need great inclusive talent development opportunities so people can learn how to make great work in the first place. And you need those opportunities to be local as well as national. You don't want everybody disappearing off. You need opportunities where people can actually develop their talents locally. And then more on the demand side, that's where venues really come into their own about being able, having the means and the ability to programme work which is relevant. That's really important, and being able to develop audiences. That's, ultimately that's where the demand really is, isn't it? People wanting to come and see work. So it's really inspiring actually to hear, Ben, about the work you've been doing about really listening and working with communities and stretching out what it means to make work here, for the theatre and how it goes about that. So I think what it needs now, the ecology, given all those challenges that are out there and the changes that have happened, collaboration and partnership, it's already been spoken about, but it can't, that ability to work with partners to share skills, but also to share risk as well. There are financial pressures here that you can't dodge. You need to think about them carefully. And again, partnerships can really help you to band together to share the risk of making work, and then whether you'll be able to get people in to see it or not. And then I think one of the other really important aspects as well is dynamic leadership. Things are changing at speed. Audiences are changing at speed. You need to think differently about how you're going about things, and you need to be willing to kind of go on that journey as well. So that's another really important aspect, to have a really strong regional theatre ecology, which I could have talked more about.
Thank you, Claudia. That actually sets me up really nicely for the next question. It's almost like we planned this. So Debbie, coming to you. From a local community, a local audience and a local theatre standpoint, from your perspective, how can larger organisations such as the Norwich Theatre use their scale responsibly to support artists, audience and smaller partner organisations?
Absolutely, thank you. Hello, everyone. Yes, absolutely, they can support us, and I'm very excited to tell you that Norwich Theatre do support us. And I have a perfect example recently from last month. St George's Theatre was approached to actually put on a production of a new adaptation of a novel on county lines, and we were working with a really exciting youth cohort, local Yarmouth people who were going to help us design the show, and also a brand new director who was new to the business and had a fantastic vision. And I was really excited about it, but I thought actually St George's hasn't got the capabilities or the resources to realise this vision. We're a small community theatre, really strapped for money. And I reached out to Norwich Theatre, and they were just amazing because they helped us by letting us borrow 2 technicians with great expertise who were able to realise the lighting, the sound, the projections. It was just fantastic. And suddenly we were able to do a production that was really exciting and bold and what we would never have been able to do on our own. But Norwich Theatre made that possible. So we're very grateful, and we're now talking about hopefully co-producing and doing a national tour. So it's very exciting.
Thank you. We better wrap up, but my thanks to all our panelists. It's been fantastic to have your perspectives. Clearly, creative intent doesn't allow Norwich Theatre to suddenly just go and make bold new work on its own. The real kind of flavour of this conversation is that it has to be supported by partnership and collaboration. And the way we think about partnership and collaboration needs to be dynamic and multidimensional, and thinking in terms of partners who aren't necessarily your traditional partners. We've heard about a wildlife trust. We've thought about audiences and communities as partners. So today is the beginning of that conversation. We don't necessarily have all the answers, but we're asking the questions, and thank you for contributing to that conversation.
Thank you so much.
Ya da olmamak. İşte bütün mesele bu. Düşüncemizin katlanması mı güzel? Zalim kaderin oklarına, yumruklarına. Yoksa diretip bela denizlerine karşı dur! Yeter demesi mi? Yeter, yeter, yeter, yeter diye direttim. Yeter diye direttik. İnsan olan yeter dedi, yeter diyen eksildi onlar. İnsanı kendi canıyla takas ettiler. Öldürdüler. Ölmek, uyumak sadece düşün ki uyumakla yalnızca bitebilir bütün acıları yüreği. Çektiği bütün kahırlar insanoğlunun, ama onlar uykuda bile işkence ettiler her yeter diyene. Ölüm uykularına yattılar insanlar. Ölüm orucuna yattılar. Küçücük çocuklarını, kemiklerini arayanlar. Uyumak. Ama düş görebilirsin uykuda o kötü. Çünkü o ölüm uykularında sıyrıldığın zaman yaşamak kaygısından ne tür düşler görebilir insan, düşünmeli bunu. Çünkü bu düşüncedir uzunca yaşamı insana cehennem eden. Ben de uzunca zamandır yaşıyorum ülkemden uzakta. Ülkemden sürüldüğümde 20 bile değildim daha. 20 bile değildim. Onun kemiklerini verdiklerinde bana. Ben de aldım sırtıma öfkemi, hıncımı, hırsımı. Yürüyorum hala onunla. Zaman ey misinsi yoldaş. Ve onlar kadar nankör. Kim dayanabilir zamanın kırbacına, zorbanın kahrına, gururunun çiğnenmesine, sevgisinin kefaze edilmesine, kanunların bu kadar yavaş, suçsuzların bu kadar hızlı yürümesine, kötülerin kul olmasına, insanın biz de kul olmadık diye bir yok ettiler bizi. Biz tercih etmedik öldürmeyi. Bir insanı, bir hayvanı, bir çiçeği, bir fikri bile öldürmeyi tercih etmedik biz. Sırf onların bile ölüm diye biz öldürmedik kendimizi. Halbuki bir bıçak saplayıp göğsüne kurtulmak varken kim ister bütün bunlara katlanmak? Ağır bir hayatın altında böyle ağır bir hayatın altında inim inlemek. Ölümden sonraki bir şeyden korkmasa insan. O herkesin gidip de gelmediği yer korkutmasa yüreğini. Sussa mesela, konuşmasa, aldırmasa, baksa mesela hayatına tatile gitse, alışveriş yapsa, eğlense, gülse, sus! Sus işte Bilinç böyle korkak ediyor hepimizi. Bilinç böyle korkak ediyor. Bilinç böyle korkak ediyor. İnsanın aklının içinde bir beyin var ya, işte o muhalefet oluyor sanki kendisine. Acınası bir hale sokuyor insanı, sanki böyle garip bir yerdeymiş gibi. Çığlık atmak istiyor. Sanki bir çığlık atmak istiyor. Atılır gibi. Şimdi istiyor. Sadece çığlık. Sadece çığlık. Bir kişi bile anlamıyor bu beni. Sadece bir kişi. Sadece bir kişi. Sadece bir kişi. Kim söyledi? Neredesin? Sen benim dilimi biliyor musun? Biliyorum. Bana yardım et. Anlatmam lazım onlara. Anlatmam lazım onlara. Böyle yardım edecek misin? Tamam. Ama ülkemden sürdüler beni. Sırf onlardan değilim diye sürdüler. Babamı öldürdüler. Kemiklerini aradım yıllarca. Halkımıza zulmettiler. Aklımızı kaçırdık. Aklımızı kaçırdık. Bilinç işte böyle aptal ediyor insanı. Ben bilincimi yitirdim, işkencede bana küfrettiklerinde ben bilincimi bıraktım. Geriye tek bir soru kalıyor. Sorulması gereken. Olmak ya da olmamak. Bütün mesele bu. Ne söylüyor? Ben de söylemek istiyorum. To be or not to be. Benim gitmem lazım. Yeni yerler, yeni insanlar bulmam lazım. Hikayemi anlatmam lazım. Yoksa aklımı kaçıracağım. Teşekkür ederim. Olmak ya da olmamak. Olmak ya da olmamak.
A huge thank you to Suat and Denise for their performance of Turk Hamlet. This piece formed part of the largest community co-production, Norwich Hamlet, late last year in partnership with the Royal Shakespeare Company. Creative Intent commits Norwich Theatre to social impact that touches lives and communities. This is a bold statement about what culture is for. It says that creativity can build confidence, connection, well-being, voice and opportunity, and that a theatre can play a meaningful civic role in responding to the challenges faced by the people and places around it.
This panel brings together voices from education, from children's services, from national cultural learning, creative health, dance and lived experience. So welcome Sarah, Daniel, Georgia, Rosa and Daria. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to explore how creative approaches can help address both new and long-standing challenges and what Norwich Theatre must do over the next 6 years to listen well, act responsibly and generate impact that lasts.
So Sarah, I'm going to start with you. Welcome. We're talking about new solutions to new and old challenges. What social challenges feel most urgent from your perspective of work?
Thank you, and good morning all. I don't think I could pick one single challenge right now. We know we've got a challenging economic context. We know we've still, particularly from a young people perspective, the aftermath since the pandemic. We know we've got an increase in additional needs of some of our young people. I think with mental health as well. And none of those are quick fixes. And I guess I always go back to what do young people tell us is important to them? And I think focusing on that and how we support those things, which will support young people within that challenging context. So in Norfolk, we've asked young people what is important to them, and they've told us quite clearly it's about connection to family and friends, access to learning, opportunity. In the context of today, we know there's talent everywhere, but often there isn't the opportunity. Young people want to be understood, they want to be resilient, they want to be respected for their own individuality, they want to be safe, and they want to be healthy. And I've seen firsthand the last couple of years how the work of the Norwich Theatre and the wider sort of creative arts in Norwich and Norfolk has really helped young people achieve each of those outcomes. And I think that's where we need to focus. We're not going to solve all the challenges at once. Let's focus on what young people have told us and be creative with that.
Thank you. Daniel, building on that, we've worked together for many years now and seen such changes in how schools have had to adapt. Can you share with us what children and young people are bringing into the classrooms and the communities now that requires a new kind of response?
Yeah, thank you, Sam, and good morning, everybody. I sort of canvassed our head teachers to make sure that it's really evidence-based, and when we're talking about our youngest children coming to reception classes, they are certainly coming in at a younger stage of development that we've never seen before. They're coming with lots of early life trauma, chaotic home life. There's a real lack of physical activity, imaginative play, communication skills are low and poor. Over-dependency on screens. We see a lot of our young children having a much more of a relationship with the screen, whether it be a tablet or a phone, than they are with adults in and around them. Self-regulation difficulties. They still need an awful lot of support to be able for them to listen, to focus, to attend, and also to how to calm their big emotions. They're certainly very impulsive. And we do think, even though these children are 5, 6, 7 years old, we do tend to think of them more like toddlers because they're certainly at that developmental age. Poor independence skills, lots of children in nappies. So social care is really, really important and part of the curriculum that we offer within the schools. And not surprisingly, with that sort of background, they really aren't ready to learn at that moment in time. So when we turn to the older children come into our high schools, our young people have faced quite a long period of early life trauma, once again a chaotic home life, and a real sense of disengagement. We see a strong impact of social media, peer pressure, screen time, and we are seeing an ever-increasing number of mental health needs. The disengagement really is, we do see some of the young people really questioning what is the purpose of coming to school. And I think a lot of that stems by the very narrow curriculum that schools have to deliver, and the fact that they don't really have a pathway or a destination point that is actually delivered by schools. So some of this is around the curriculum. We need to be bold, and we're going to work with Norwich Theatre to actually develop a pathway curriculum so children in our high schools actually focus on the areas of interest a lot earlier. So with that sort of summary of where children are coming in, there is no surprise in education. We are faced with lots of challenges, and some of the challenges we are facing is poor attendance. And when you look at all the challenges our young people are coming into, you do start to wonder and actually understand why perhaps school isn't the place they want to be.
Thank you, Daniel. And Georgia, we've worked with the RSC in schools and communities for a long time now, and you've got a long-standing schools programme, which is 10 years now. Where have you seen creativity make a real difference in people's confidence or well-being, learning, and especially around sense of belonging?
Thanks, Sam. Morning, everyone. First and foremost is to say that we see creativity and great practice happening everywhere in the sector. I suppose where I feel I've seen creativity make a tangible difference is when there are kind of three elements at play. The first of those is about sustained engagement. Now, that's not to say that sort of ad hoc, one-off creative engagement opportunities are not highly beneficial, but in order to see impact, we need longevity. And with sustained engagement also comes a prioritization and an embedding of creativity. So it's not a nice to have or enrichment, it's core and fundamental. The second of those is about partnerships and collaborations, which we heard a lot about earlier. I think where partners or collaborators come together with a shared vision, shared priorities, and are able to have a shared framework or shared outcomes, but each partner is able to be locally responsive to what the context is and the need is within the communities they're working within. We see creativity really flourishing. And the third of those, and for me the most important, is where creativity is people-centered. So where it's about people investing time in each other. And with that investment comes the opportunity to build connections, to learn with and from each other, and to find relevance in our lives and in our world today.
Thank you, Georgia. I'm going to come back to Daniel now. Building on what Georgia's thrown down as the three challenges, how can theatre, drama and creative learning support language, communication, confidence, as well as the aspirations of pupils and teachers in your schools?
Yeah, thank you. If you really focus on the younger children, there's no doubt about that the creative arts really helps to deliver their oracy skills. The work that we've done with Norwich Theatre shows that. It certainly helps with their communication, their language skills, not just the spoken words, but also the language of unspoken words, gestures, body language. It also teaches the language of emotions, where we know that children are coming in not really understanding their emotions, not able to self-regulate themselves. It also turns the abstract education to a lived experience. And now, like never before, we really need children to have a multi-sensory approach to their education. It also delivers, most importantly for me, that emotional response. We know that if we all have an emotional response to whatever, it tends to stick with you. When I was a head teacher at Arden Grove, I used to say to the parents and carers, I don't want your children to remember being taught to read, write, to be numerate. I want them to remember the amazing experiences, the experience that light them up, the experience that makes learning fun. And through the creative arts, there's no doubt about it that it does that. It also obviously develops their imagination and their play skills, and these are obviously essential for friendships. And most importantly, for a lot of our very young children, it offers that outlet, that escapism, a place of safety where they can go because they're coming from often very chaotic home and challenging lifestyles. For our younger people at high school, I think it can offer an awful lot more. It offers often that lifeline to a child. It means that a child stays in education. It enables them to thrive. We had one child in an infant school who was the most amazing performer. We didn't realise he was an amazing performer until virtually the last day of his school when he was in a Year 2 production, a Leavers concert. I looked at the parents and carers and said, wow, where has that come from? The parents and carers didn't know, but ever since then he's gone on to the junior school and the high school, and the creative and performing arts has kept that child in school, in education. It's enabled that child to thrive. So moving forward, we've got to move away from a very rigid curriculum where we can actually offer children pathways and a destination point, a place where they want to actually be because they're going to end up where they'd like to be, and not just the route of academia, but the route to actually apprenticeships or the workplace, or indeed further education. So within our schools and with the work we're doing with Norwich Theatre, we really want infant years as an opportunity for children to explore so they can come out and say, I can do this and this and this. And within our junior or later primary age, we really want the children to actually develop their strengths. I am good at. And when we get to high schools, we need high schools to be a little bit more of a pathway where actually they can develop their strengths and be directed to a place of work, further education, or indeed apprenticeships. So what we want to really do with Norwich Theatre is develop a pathway curriculum where children not wait until they get to Year 9 to make their choices. They actually have their choices already firmly established, and we actually develop a curriculum around them and a pathway so we can engage with them, we can keep them in school, and we can get them to a destination point. And we know from the creative arts work that really is an opportunity that lots of our children want. It will help them remain in school. It will make sure that actually school makes sense because they're going to end up with a destination point.
Thank you, Daniel. I'm going to turn now to Rosa and Daria. As creatives that have been involved in very different ways with Norwich Theatre, we'd love to hear from you about what it means to belong in practice and how can organisations create conditions for it.
I'll go first. Thank you so much for having me. Hello, everyone. So I sort of sit with two hats on. I am artistic director of Compass Dance. We reach out to people that don't often experience those creative opportunities, in particular dance, so people with disabilities, people living with dementia. But I also work as part of the delivery team on some of the programs that run here as part of the theatre. So I think when I think of belonging in with those two hats on, I think about feeling valued, trusted, and connected by a shared vision. And I think one of the things I really appreciate about the organisation in both of those capacities that I work within is that it tends to be very collaborative. Oftentimes, as a freelance artist, we are given work and quite a prescribed way of delivering that, whereas the theatre will come to me and value me as an artist and my expertise and experience and take on board my ideas. So it becomes more of a collaboration and a more of a kind of two-way relationship. And I think that it's just worth knowing who you have as your point of contact, who I'm able to talk to. Something that the theatre does really well, actually, is pays their artists fairly. We do live in an economy where the arts is not very well paid. So actually to be supported by an organisation that has fair pay is extremely beneficial. And in terms of Compass Dance, we would not be where we are today without the support of the theatre. I think it was Kiri from the last panel that mentioned that having support like the theatre is a must now. So we have been successful with various Arts Council applications, and the support of the theatre has massively strengthened those applications in terms of in-kind support, financial support, help and advice, and it has definitely kind of cultivated that feeling of belonging. So I know who I can talk to about various things within the theatre, and this also disseminates down to who I'm working with. So those hard to reach communities that we're bringing into the theatre.
Hello everyone. So I can speak from experience because I'm a displaced person myself, and I had to leave my homeland because of war. And the story is that when I came to UK for the first year, I didn't want to leave my house. I didn't want to integrate. I did not want to belong here. I wanted to go back home, and it's it's everything that I was dreaming about. But at some point, realization came that I cannot do that. And I was really, really lucky to be able to find the Being Migrant group. And what really made the difference is genuinely just small gestures of being heard and seen. It's important to know that people see more to you than just that you're just a refugee or a displaced person, asylum seeker. There's way more to tell about us. What was also really important is the routine. It's to know that there is a place we can come back to every week, be free, be safe, and just talk about our experience. It took a while for all of us to get comfortable. It takes time. That's why routine is important. You should have space to come back over and over again. But I think the point when I felt like I do belong here is during our creative process, when I was able to say, maybe I disagree with something. Maybe I think you should do something differently. When I was able to express myself without fear and say, actually, I also have ideas, and people agree that they're good ideas. And I think this was the point when I felt like I do belong here.
Thank you. And I'd like to ask you a second follow-up question to that one, specifically around that last point there, because you are actually been with the Sanctuary Group for a number of years, and you're now on the national tour with Migrant Women. Yeah. How can creative spaces support people who have experienced displacement, as you've said, exclusion or isolation, without reducing them to just those experiences?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned previously, it's quite important to realize that there is more story to it. Yes, we have reasons why we ended up here, but it's not what made us. We had life before that. Most of us had been doctors, professional actors, performers in our home countries. And it's quite important to realize, from my experience, in the first year when I was in UK, every time I was telling people that I have a master's degree in something, they were surprised. People do not realize that actually outside, before we came here, we were studying, we were working, we were doing something else as well. It was quite a surprise for a lot of people. But it's quite important also to remember not to have labels again. There is more to the story. And I would say have a safe space is very, very important. When we were working together from the beginning, we've been told only tell us as much as you're comfortable with. Tell me what you want to do. I'm not going to tell you what you need to do. It's about you exploring your emotions, how you feel, how much you feel comfortable with sharing. Do you want dance? Do you want to do a monologue? Do you want just sit quietly and watch other people do that? And I think this is really, really important to be able to do it. As well, with the tour that we are currently doing, which we are very, very proud of, we always have Q&A in the end because we want to know what people think about it and how did it go and how we also think about it. And what's important, because all our participants are migrants. And the people who come and see as well, most of the people are migrants as well. And the feedback that we got was amazing. People were telling us, I felt seen for the first time in many years while living in UK. The same people who didn't experience displacement, they said to me, I see more to it now. It made me think about what those people experienced. And I think the fact that it impacted our lives as a group, obviously, for of us as being migrant group, but I think that we are receiving this kind of feedback from the people who watched it is also great. The fact that we can make a difference for like 4 people maybe, but it's still amazing. It's great. Yeah.
It's so powerful. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Rosa, I'm going to come to you now. Probably a tricky question, but by 2032, what should Norwich Theatre be known for in relation to social impact?
Yeah, it is a tricky question, and I don't doubt that the theatre will meet its aims in that regard about bringing in audiences in isolated communities, in having breaking barriers for those that may not see themselves coming into the theatre. But actually, when I was thinking about this question, I was thinking about what sets the theatre apart and actually what the theatre might be known for and how you're achieving those goals that are maybe different from others. And this word sharing came to mind, and I think it's not just me. And I think it's about delivering the message of what your social impact is. So just things like today, for example, shouting about it, making sure that everybody that the theatre comes into your sphere knows about it, so that people are able to contribute and add value to those impactful goals that you're aiming for. And I think there's that generosity of the nature of this organisation. So it's the shared spaces, the sharing of resources, it's knowledge, it's time, and that's not just for artists. I think that's for communities. I think that's for partnering organisations that we've already heard from today. And again, I think it's about that shared learning. So working with partner organisations that have some of the same values. For me, it's win-win. So Compass Dance have so many similar ethoses to you that actually we are able to work together collaboratively to meet the same goals and also be supporting one another, which is, fantastic. So trying not to kind of ramble on, I could say lots more. But I think that the theatre that understands social impact grows when we share resources, remove barriers, and enable others to thrive.
Thank you. Creativity is not separate from the challenges facing society. It can help children find language and confidence, support people through change and displacement, strengthen belonging, and create spaces where communities are heard. Creative Intent asks Norwich Theatre to take that responsibility seriously, to listen, to work in partnership, to design access from the start, and to understand impact is not a slogan, but is a commitment to people's lives.
I was promised the confetti cannon. No? Fine. Creative endeavour is deliberately active. It speaks to work and effort, ambition and change. In Creative Intent, it talks of all the tools, infrastructure and capabilities that make all else possible, including skills, careers, partnerships, business models, capital investment, organisational resilience. In this panel, we'll explore what Creative Endeavour does through a different lens. We're going to talk to some of our theatre's key partners who can help Norwich Theatre become who we need to be in order to deliver our artistic and social ambitions over the next 6 years, and what will enable us to deliver on our creative endeavour and maximise our impact, as well as what role the theatre can play in the wider civic, educational and economic life of Norwich, Norfolk and the region.
So let's kick off with a perceived different lens. Helen, if I can turn to you. When you hear the phrase creative endeavour, from the perspective of a commercial organisation, what does that make you think and feel?
Oh, I have to sit up because it makes me feel purposeful. It makes me feel full of energy. I think creative endeavour is all about that sustained effort to deliver growth through innovation. Innovation, coming up with different ways to address different audiences and customers, and just doing new things. So that's a real sustained effort. And I think it's very much about team. You can't get the most out of a creative endeavour on your own. You absolutely need a winning team around you.
And that team, that's what you think gives you a competitive advantage, does it?
I think creative endeavour is the difference between winning and losing as a business. And that's why it's so brilliant that creative endeavour is the sort of, the third strategic priority for Norwich Theatre.
That's a great place to kick off from. David, if I could turn to you then, please. As a major cultural organisation such as the theatre, what role should it play in the economic and civic life of the city and the county? And if I could ask you as a supplementary question now, what role will a university play in a growing creative economy?
Organisations like the university and the theatre, I think of as civic lighthouses. And it's important to me not just how bright the light shines, but how far the light is cast. What can we as major civic organisations illuminate, particularly in today's context, of course, around culture and the arts and education? What can we illuminate that transforms the way that people can see? And how can we add public benefit, social and economic impact? Now, in the modern world, of course, there's no escaping the fact that measures of value add and return on investment are really important. We need to think about jobs created, revenue generated. But beyond that, it's not just economic impact that counts. It's social and societal impact. And here, I think narrative and storytelling, they are the arcs which supply what I call nuanced colour commentary about the successes and the purposeful impact in different organisations around the city and the county. So I think let's look at economic and social impact, and let's look at how far those electrons of light can travel and what they can transform through their illumination.
Thank you, David. I adore that concept of casting light and the beacon and weaving in the narrative and the storytelling. And that allows me, Lucy, to turn to you and just ask, so if the beacon is there, what conditions are needed for creativity to thrive? And again, from the city's point of view, and as our city continues to grow and evolve, how does the creative endeavour place itself at the centre of placemaking in our communities to make sure it's a place we are really proud of and adore and cherish?
It's a very good question, a big question. Well, we're a new administration at City Hall, as you know, and a City Hall that's had a very long and productive relationship with this theatre, and we are twin beacons in the city centre. And some of our key early priorities are to be a listening council, to be an even more listening council, and to make sure that the city centre really thrives. So that's the first thing to say, that the outside is important as well, and to take this beacon, to cast this light wide is very important. But the city centre as a place is an important place too. It's the centre of industry. It's the heart. It's the beating heart. So there have been many echoes of that today through all our speakers and through the whole strategy. In economic terms, Norwich is a wonderful place, but there are entrenched inequalities. And when we improve the economy, we address those inequalities, so that does benefit everyone. So as a city council, we're very aware that the economic picture for many has become harder, to the extent that it costs more to be poor now for many people. So much can be done, and I'm so heartened to see the focus of this strategy on looking at reaching out and making sure that everyone benefits, because by making sure everyone benefits, those sort of benefits spread much wider, and that's proven by hard economics. So that economic growth we want to see is benefits reaching everyone, because we all benefit from that. I'd just like to say that the council and the theatre, I think, are kind of siblings in many ways. The piece we saw earlier, I think, was presented in City Hall, and we've got so many similarities as organisations. We work around community cohesion, we work around relevance, we work around expression, and we work so importantly about making sure that people enjoy the culture of the city. All of that helps us to have conversations about really difficult things that unlocks creativity, unlocks the economy. And I just really look forward to seeing this strategy develop, and I'm very pleased to be here, part of it today.
Thank you, Lucy. Chris, if I can turn to you, we've listened to winning a competitive advantage, we've listened to a beacon, and we've listened to the challenges as presented, but what manifests from that is good growth to hopefully overcome a number of those challenges that individuals experience. From a creative endeavour point of view, how does that drive inward investment? And with this sort of agreed passion from the panel so far, what do you see as the biggest skills, opportunities and shortages facing the creative industry should we sort of take on board these challenges and really drive some inward investment to bring about better growth?
Thanks, Rob, and pleasure to be on the panel today. That feels like two questions. It feels like two separate questions: inward investment and how can the theatre be a beacon, a lighthouse, or an anchor, depending on your metaphor of the day, to attract business, to attract civic life. And then I'll come on to the skills point. So on inward investment. So what we want to see is Norwich and the wider Norfolk economy thrive, and for everyone to have the opportunities for the jobs and lives that they want to live, which is a sort of simple sort of cross-party, I think, agreement on that. The role of the theatre is so important because I was thinking, why is Norwich Theatre Royal special compared with a cinema? So a national cinema chain operates in a town and it puts on The Window of a World and people go and see it. But how does it really benefit the community? How does it benefit the community? Well, you get a perspective of life in other places and so on, but it doesn't really tell you anything about yourself. And certainly you might get a job as a front of house, or you might get a job as a projectionist, although I'm not sure whether they still employ those in national chains. But that's all it does. Whereas the theatre role, with its strategy, has such much more purpose of being embedded in its community. Everything about the theatre is about how it engages with communities in parts of Norwich, how it works, as we've heard, with theatre groups across the county. And that's so important, such a rich story to tell as part of that inward investment story. So we talk to employers around bringing your business to Norfolk. And one of the questions that's increasingly asked is, what's the quality of life? What is the offer there? So to have a rich cultural offer, that's about the content, but also about the connectivity and the role the theatre plays is so important. So, and of course, the theatre is critically important as an employer, as an economic driver in its own right. Turning to your skills question, of course, skills is pretty much the number one question for businesses. We can't get the right people, or it's difficult to recruit and so on. So for the cultural sector, for the creative industry sector to be successful, it needs to really ensure that we have that creative pipeline. It really enthused about the work that Wensum Trust are doing about the pathways. We use the same expression. How do we create career pathways for people who are inspired by a trip to the theatre to think that, I could work here one day? And you don't have to work here. You could work at St George's, or you could work in the sector and so on. And I think the theatre has a really important role as that anchor to help bring together, to work with the likes of the university and the schools and ourselves to try and create that ability for people to work and thrive within the sector and see, in a crowded marketplace for job opportunities, how do you get into the creative industries, and it's a career that is really worth pursuing.
David, with the need being suggested and the demand being alluded to, the question sort of turns to ourselves: is how can cultural organisations such as the theatre, schools and universities collaborate better to demonstrate clearer pathways for individuals to join and enter the creative careers?
It's sometimes said that to go fast, you should travel alone, but to go far, you must travel together. And it's that sense of interconnection and support, which is really important. And it's this spirit of collaboration and interdisciplinarity, which was one of the founding core principles for the University of East Anglia. I completely subscribe to the view that we need to work together. and here I apologize, I'm about to use the C word. Yes, collaboration is really important if we're going to tackle some of the contemporary wicked problems around youth unemployment, around poor health spans, around low economic productivity. To tackle those, we need to pool resources, we need to pool talent. And so resolutions to these problems require education and skills, they require theory and practice, and they require learning and doing. So I think we as a university have got quite a lot to bring to the party. We have world-class arts, humanities and social science researchers. We've got a series of highly renowned programs. Perhaps one of our flagships is our MA in prose fiction, creative writing in another world. Recently endorsed by Lee Child, he of Jack Reacher fame, who's endowed a new professorship in crime writing at the university. We also have resources like the Sainsbury's Centre, a world-class arts and cultural museum, where we've just received an amazing philanthropic gift from the Sainsbury's family. So we're really proud to be working with others in the city and the county, particularly with the theatre, on a new programme to develop skills for theatre practice. And we're really enthusiastic about using our capability to collaborate and to address some of these really tricky, wicked problems.
Thank you, David. Helen, if I turn to you, in your experience, what can the theatre itself learn from business about innovation, customer relationships, which is key to you guys, commercial growth and investment? And if you can bring some of that wonderful enthusiasm as well, it would be magnificent.
Okay, I will try. So, what can theatres learn? A lot. But I think this theatre is already on that path already, clearly, with the setup of Intrepid, which is super exciting, and the fact that creative endeavour, as I said, is a strategic priority. I think what we can absolutely learn is every business is set up to meet the demands and need of a customer. And every business that's successful absolutely needs to continue to change and to innovate to continue to meet those customer needs. Now, I know that from business, if you do that and do that well, you have a very sustainable business model, and you're not quite as buffeted by the headwinds and tailwinds of the market as you might be. You and that customer have that special relationship, and if you can anticipate what they might need, then you're absolutely onto a winning streak. And every business that I've worked in that's really good at that, they do it at the grassroots. So everyone that comes in the door, whichever level, they are asked about their curiosity, their innovation, their strategic thinking to make sure they've got it in them. And yes, their commerciality. You know, from an Intrepid point of view, every penny of profit we make will do so much good. And to go back to the beacon, that light will shine even brighter and further from the success of Intrepid. And that's super important. But of course, that sort of golden thread of innovation, if you like, has to go right up to the shareholders. And when you're trying to drive growth at pace and do new and different things, there can be a bit of risk involved. And we've got to get comfortable with risk and get them comfortable with risk. And that's fine because we can put controls in place, but you can't put too many controls in place that growth is stifled. Because growth is absolutely key. And as I say, it comes from the grassroots of the team that are there to deliver on that. And it should be celebrated.
Rightly so. I think finally, Lucy, if I can turn to you, we have here a bold strategy that, as you pointed out, Helen, this organisation is prepared to evolve and it is curious. But for the wider cultural community, what advice do you have for the community to remain resilient to what it aims to do and true whilst being able to actually be financially secure in the process of doing that?
I think it comes back to a lot of the things that have been said already today, and that what this theatre is achieving really well in terms of being bold and having that strong vision. They both do tap into what this is as a city. I think we are a city that does look a bit differently. It is quite a bold place in a quiet kind of way. I'd like to just share the story of the Limbic production that was talked about earlier on. I've been in a community centre for a long time on the on the board of that community centre at the Marlpit, and we helped to make Sweetbriar Marshes happen with the Wildlife Trust when it first went for sale, and that place was never shared. No one ever went there. And for years and years we thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if people knew this was here and people would come? And it was a distant dream that a piece of art would ever be performed on there. But with the belief and the boldness of this place, that actually happened. And it didn't just happen, it happened really, really well. And it was a dream come true, really, to see that art happen in that space that had been so closed, and the Wildlife Trust. It was all those partners working together with the City Council, also helping in part. So I think the advice would be to be bold and be brave and carry on with what you're doing and work together, bring people together, keeping the space and holding that civic space for conversations, which is what a theatre is.
Feel a bit like I'm just going to stop the fun now because I think they could keep going for a long while. But with a huge thanks to our panel, we hope that we've demonstrated that deep relationships and connections with our partners shows the scope that Norwich Theatre has to achieve our ambitions over the next 6 years. These relationships will be strengthened. I'm sure they'll be tested at times, and we will be adding to them with new relationships. Creative Endeavour asks us to build an organisation that's ready for the future, one that invests in its people, works with its partners and strengthens the regional economy, whilst also ensuring that Bold Theatre and social impact can continue to grow with confidence. Thank you.
Please welcome back to the stage Stephen Crocker and Norwich Theatre trustee Laura McGillivray.
As we come to the end of this morning, I want to begin by saying a very sincere thank you to everyone who has helped bring creative intent to life today. Thank you to our panel co-chairs, both trustees and my colleagues, who've guided such thoughtful conversations. Thank you to all of our panelists for sharing your experience, challenge, insight, and both generosity of time and spirit. The range of voices we've heard this morning illustrates, I truly believe, as has been said many times, how this strategy depends on partnership. It also depends on honesty and our continuing to listen carefully to those who know their communities, sectors, and lived experiences best. My particular thanks must go to the artists who've been part of today. Strategy can very often feel abstract until it's embodied by people, stories, voices, and creative work. Suat, Denise, Suki, and Alaz, you've reminded us so very powerfully how creative experiences can move us, connect us, challenge us, and help us see the world, and indeed one another, very differently. Thank you.
So as trustees, we believe that creative intent is the right strategy for Norwich Theatre because it is both ambitious and responsible. And I think all the examples we've seen today give me faith as a trustee that this is definitely going to happen. So it's ambitious in its commitment to bold theatre, work that speaks loud and clear, that is distinctive, collaborative, rooted in place and resonant beyond it. It's responsible in its commitment to social impact, recognising that Norwich Theatre has a role to play in supporting well-being, belonging, access, opportunity, and community voice. And it's also realistic and forward-looking in its commitment to creative endeavour. As Nick said in the beginning, it's based on the last strategy, and we've already demonstrated that we've come so far as a theatre. But we understand that none of this happens without investment in people, skills, partnerships, infrastructure, business resilience, and the long-term health of the organisation. What feels particularly important is this strategy does not separate artistic excellence from public value. It brings them together. It says that bold creative work and positive social impact can strengthen one another. It says that Norwich Theatre can be both a major cultural organisation and a listening, positive charity. It says that growth must be purposeful. And for a theatre rooted in this city, serving its county and its region, and connected to national and international creative life, that feels exactly like the right direction.
Creative Intent's commitment to artistic ambition and social responsibility will soon become visible in the work we make, the work we present, the partnerships we build, and the communities we serve. As part of that, I'm delighted to share today that in 2028, Norwich Theatre will co-produce a major new musical, We Aren't Kids Anymore. This was first premiered, having been workshopped in Norwich at the Savoy Theatre last year. It is a hugely exciting project written by internationally acclaimed California-based musician Drew Gasparini and directed by Tony Award-winning director, New York-based director Warren Carlyle, who made his very first stage debut on the stage I'm standing on today. California meets New York meets Norwich. We're also committing to it's exactly the kind of bold, ambitious, creative partnership that speaks to the future we are setting out. Work that can grow from strong relationships, creative risk, and a belief in Norwich Theatre's role as an international producer of work. We're also committing to 2 social impact-led sessions of work in 2027, each shaped as a bold call for social change. The first, in May 2027, will focus on 10 years of this exploring issues around mental health. Society has come a long way in talking more openly about mental health, but we still have a long way to go before mental health is truly seen on a par with physical health. We believe creativity has a powerful role to play in that change, creating language where words are difficult, building empathy, reducing isolation, and helping people feel seen, heard, and connected. The second season, in autumn 2027, will focus on creative aging, celebrating aging, challenging perceptions of aging, and asking how creativity can help people to age well. It will explore how creative experience support connection, confidence, dignity, and visibility in later life, and how society can better value and support its older people. Those sessions will not sit at the edge of our programme. They'll be central to how we express this strategy, bringing together artistic work, participation, partnership, lived experience, and public conversation, which, as we've heard, is what theatres are for. They will ask how creativity can support well-being, connection, dignity at all stages of life. That is what creative intent means in practice. It is not a set of headings, it's a commitment to action.
And that action will only be possible through partnership, a principle that's very close to my heart. Norwich Theatre is a charity, which means its purpose is not simply to sell tickets or fill stages, important though audiences and performances are. Its purpose is to serve people and places through creativity. Throughout the development of this strategy, Norwich Theatre has heard from artists, audiences, participants, young people, older people, schools, civic partners, community organisations, funders, businesses, freelancer staff, and volunteers. These voices must continue to shape what happens next. Partnership will be central to our delivery, with local and regional authorities, education, health, community groups, cultural organisations, artists, businesses, and national partners. But partnership cannot mean just working alongside one another when it's convenient. It has to mean shared purpose, mutual respect, long-term commitment, and visible benefit for the people we are here to serve. If creative intent succeeds, and I believe it will be because Norwich Theatre has continued to listen, continued to respond, and continued to work generously with others.
So as we close today, I won't simply repeat what we've already heard, but I will end with an invitation. My invitation is this: come and be part of this. If you're an artist, bring us your ideas and your challenge. If you're a school, college or university, work with us to open up creative futures. If you work in health, social care or local government, help us show what creativity can do for place, well-being, confidence and civic life. If you're a business, funder, donor or sponsor, invest with us in impact alongside excellence. And if you're an audience member, keep coming, keep questioning us, keep telling us what matters. And then finally, if you're part of our community of staff, volunteers, trustees, freelancers or participants, know that this strategy depends upon your creativity, commitment and care. And for that, I am immensely grateful. The last 6 years have shown us Norwich Theatre can adapt, listen, grow and lead. The next 6 years asks us to do that with even greater intent, to make bold theatre drive social impact and build the creative endeavour that makes both possible. Thank you to everyone who has helped get us here. Thank you to those who've contributed to the development of this strategy. And thank you to those who've challenged us, encouraged us, and helped us think more clearly about what is needed now. By 2032, we want Norwich Theatre to be known not only for the quality of its work, but for its impact and public value, as a creative force helping people, places, and ideas to thrive. And that won't happen because we've launched the strategy today. That will happen because from today, we chose to act on it together. And that is our creative intent. Thank you.